Nazis.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the Red Eye stream number 254. I've killed Mad Dodge and I'm wearing his skin. I'm inviting everybody round for a long pig barbecue at the end of the evening.
Good
luck. Druid?
It's a very baggy suit.
Thank you. Right. This stream is going to be odd because I've got absolutely fuck all planned, and simply put, we're just going to talk an absolute load of rubbish. I'd like to thank all of the volunteers for being here for my absolute humiliation. And, well, introduce yourselves. Go for it.
Well, my name is Cabbage Patch Bastard, and I'm a complete and utter fucking arsehole.
It's true. I can confirm that.
You can just call me the guy that's going to take the blame for any missteps that Jenson makes.
Right. Which one of you is Tonkasaw?
I used to think I was Native American. I was as Native American as Elizabeth Warren.
Okay.
I didn't want to admit it, but this squeaky chair is actually my wheelchair.
The thing is, did you wear face paint?
What?
Only
maybe
when
at one
asked. It costs extra.
Okay, so who's got something they want to chat about, or I'm going straight into the abortion conversation?
We are not talking about abortions.
Like, yes, we are.
No, we're not.
Trust me. Yes,
No,
we
we're
are.
not. No, we're not. No, we're not.
Duck season.
Rabbit season.
Duck season.
Oh well, if we're not doing abortion, then we're going straight to the dead baby jokes.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, boy.
I love the dead baby jokes. Please remember, I warned him. I warned him before this happened. Okay, so who wants to start with the dead baby jokes, or shall I go first?
Do I need to go buy a trampoline and a catapult? That's the only question I have.
Trebuchet, down, upgrade.
Wait, you're putting a trebuchet on a catapult to have it get extra range? I never thought.
Yes.
See, the thing is, you can't have a trebuchet unless you have a GoPro that's an appropriate size. Otherwise, you can't film it.
Sorry, I have nothing to bring to this. Nothing to bring to this apart from a coat hanger and a staircase.
No.
Wait, what? Oh, you're going to hang out my clothes. Thank you.
I'm basically going to make another one of your girlfriends become an ex-Mrs. Memes.
Wait, so how's that work? Do you stick the coat hanger?
Oh, she texted me.
Actually, that's a good subject.
Go on, SSM.
Oh, I said, how's that work, Magic Bollocks? Do you just stick the coat hanger inside the...
Yep.
And then just push her down the stairs?
Give it a wiggle around and
No.
well, one or the other.
No, you really,
Hook on the end.
It's
if
an
you really want to be
invitation.
creative, here, what you need is at least 2 coat hangers and a centrifuge.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Wait, you have
Right.
CRISPR?
Okay, so I'm guessing that at least some of you have heard the absolutely glorious thing coming out of New York. How they're... Yeah. Okay, who was that? All right. The absolutely glorious suggestion coming out of New York about abortions being legal up to basically just before the birth of the child.
3rd trimester.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. Memes, how old are you?
What? Oh, 34.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going for that age.
Oh,
Hey, now come on, Cab. We know the American women are big, but that's taking the fucking piss.
I don't know. Have you seen the size of some of them things? Jesus, if they fell over.
Trying to say, oh, Memes has got one big mama.
Oh, she's actually she's actually shorter than SSM. Oh, my apologies.
She lets him out for weekends. He's got womb pass.
Oh, dude.
Did you call me Sasquatch?
No.
I will stab you both in the neck.
We're off to a
Oh,
brilliant
he's still
start.
Right. Right, as you were, Mr.
brilliant.
Quinn, killing babies.
Yes.
Yes.
We got, you know,
Yes.
we're talking about
Yes,
the good
methods.
stuff.
Discuss.
Yeah.
Right. So, has anybody got an opinion on the idea of what can only be described as the murder of a child? I mean, my God, they are talking about giving the abortion to a child, i.e., taking it out and severing its spine.
It's a third trimester abortion, and the idea has been around for a while. And this does not surprise me. And as abhorrent as it is, this is nothing new. No. And coming from the state of New York, it's also not surprising. I forgot who did the video on it, but someone went around and asked a bunch of I hate to say it, people a little bit younger, the younger side of my generation, if they thought abortion was okay for 1- and 2-year-old babies.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
The answer was overwhelmingly yes. This is the state of our society now. People think abortions are capable when your child is 1 or 2 years old.
Right. Is there any option to actually just abort the parents instead? So they can actually remove the child from the mother and then just cut the mother's spine?
That has been suggested in terms of, you know, whether or not certain families should be allowed to breed. You know, the whole eugenics sort of concept.
Okay, now we're just talking about straight up murdering people and eugenics. That's not cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's got to have some. It's got to have some perks of the job. Means.
Wait, what job?
Well, somebody'd have to do it.
You sounded a little too enthusiastic there.
Wait, what?
Oh, sorry. Memes only does it as a hobby at the moment.
Wait, what am I doing? Who?
Consider it tabletop gaming.
Parents means you're aborting the parents, not the children. See?
What?
You're
a
hero.
No, Cabbage has been saying this before. That's bad.
I've been saying it for like about 8, close to 10 years now that this stuff was starting to become more prevalent, and they are. The whole Sanger thing came back into trend. So, and they are. They want to fertility treatments for parents. And they're trying to do everything they can to lower birth rate. So it's hardly a surprise that they would be looking at any other method to remove ones that are there already.
Are they deliberately only targeting one demographic though?
Well, I don't know. You could say the blacks are the ones who suffer the most from abortion, in statistics.
It certainly is. If they're giving, aborting white children.
Hold on. Is it really suffering? Is it really suffering if you're too stupid to put on a fucking condom, wear a diaphragm, get birth control? We have the option.
Yes, but that involves effort. My God, people don't need to be dealing with effort. It's much easier.
You shouldn't be expected to remember to take a pill once a day. I mean, my God, what kind of an oppressor are you?
Exactly.
Animal.
That would mean
who are you guys to expect a woman to do anything? How oppressive and toxic of you to expect them to be required? I mean, God, that's just centuries of toxic masculinity talking about.
God forbid they actually be responsible for their actions. I mean, that's not on the cards, mate, anytime.
Yes, I mean, considering how many liters of toxic masculinity caused the problem in the first place.
Heaven forbid you put a fucking condom on.
Some people are allergic to latex.
There are other options.
You can get non-latex
condoms.
Fine, go anal then. Whatever, there's options.
God's nipple, huh? Are we doing a Garfunkel and Oates song today?
Oh no, Cab, you. He's always got to go. Oh, Cab, he's always got to go off road, isn't he?
Nothing wrong with a little diversion every now and then.
Hey, nobody ever gets up the dirt track on fucking dirty.
Yeah, the last people that said that ended up being the fucking stars of a movie called The Hills Have Eyes, but whatever floats your boat.
Ding, 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 ding.
That's Deliverance. That's a different one.
Sorry. Excuse me. Hillbillies raping folk. You go with what you know. I mean,
are we being racist?
No, it's okay. We're talking about largely a white demographic. You'll be fine.
Well, yeah, you are being racist then, because I mean, whites are actually the smallest demographic on the planet.
It's heading that way, I will admit.
No,
Actually,
numbers.
Cabby's completely right. If you go across the 11 billion people planet-wide, Caucasians are the smallest population demographic.
Yeah.
Period.
I'm an oppressed minority, mate. I need my freebies.
With the lowest population replacement rate at that.
Well, that's a different argument because actually that's across all first world nations. So like Japan, for example, has the smallest population reproduction rate out of all of Asia, robots. But it also has the wealthiest economy and the best, average middle class experience. So I mean, it has more to do with like if you need 18 kids to like be able to reproduce and stay alive. Yeah. Oh.
Well, that is true.
Checks. Definitely need them welfare checks.
Also, that is true because if you think about it back from before we had, let's say, the cotton gin, you needed a way to reproduce when you're playing a Little House on the Prairie. You're gonna have to pop out a couple of kids because you're not gonna be able to farm that land with your own bare hands. You're gonna need some help.
Well, realistically, it wasn't the cotton gin that made the biggest difference. It was penicillin. Like the minute the penicillin went in, you didn't need 18 children to get to adulthood. You only needed two kids. So I mean that changes a great deal if you don't need nearly as much, basically child capital to equal an adult person.
Well, you need 2 boys and a girl. You still gotta have someone to do the paperwork.
Pump the brakes for a second. So, are you saying that people that owned farms and did farm work and whatnot had a bunch of kids, and those kids would go work fields and so on and so forth?
Yeah, of course they would. Yeah, they were family farms. I mean, there was no. I mean, you're going back to just relatively recent history in America.
Yeah,
that's what people were doing.
Hell no, common history still today, like yesterday history. We're still on an agrarian. We're still on an agrarian time scale for education and work. That's the reason why summer is viewed as a special time off where you get to go vacation and shit. It's from that. It's fully agrarian.
Well, you're gonna have to remind me of that word, agrarian.
Agrarian crops. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I mean, but as far as that goes, that's the reason why, like Asia, for example, Japan and China, they're on a tri system with their semesters. They're on trimesters because they
we're back to abortion again.
Well, and also don't.
No. I'm just talking about how education and work schedules are viewed in different places because. Particularly rice is harvestable all year long. It's not on a season scale like wheat, barley.
Well, they're not on the same season as us usually, depending on what part of Asia you're from. And also, America produces, what is it, like 35% of the
wheat.
Something like 35% of the rice that goes to the world.
No,
yes, actually, Texas rice equates for more than what's made in China. I'm using
specifically down around the Gulf of Mexico, like around Houston. If you drive, like if you're heading towards Houston, there is a ton of rice fields, and they're going all year long.
Well, yeah, but the thing about that,
though, all year long, not wrong.
Well, no, but the thing about that though is that rice is of shitty quality. We only get about 5 grains of rice per plant, whereas like Japan and China get about 50. But we still have so much rice land to grow because we have.
Explain to me this, because I fucking cook and I'm a cook. Explain to me this: why are they using the grease grease in most of China, in most of the fast food restaurants you go to? They're using the grease and reusing it.
It's recycled.
Because they don't have standards. That's why.
Because the Chinese are sick in the head.
No, because you can refine it, dude. We do that stuff around here too. They go around to the different shops and they'll literally haul away your grease, so it saves you money, and they'll recycle it and make money.
Oh yeah, no. As far as grease goes, you can as a private citizen go to like McDonald's or whatever pick up their grease if you're using
I know that.
automated stuff. So I mean, and it's still
but he's not saying about putting it into the market. He's talking about reusing it in the restaurant.
Oh, reusing
That's
it
a
for
point,
food?
right?
Yeah.
It's just because they don't have standards.
Yeah,
I think the standards are a little weaker because they don't have as much to back it up. Because I mean, that was something that we did out here. Like, we no longer cook with cow patties anymore. Nobody uses buffalo birds as a way to heat your fucking dinner.
Cabby is absolutely right. I was talking about reusing it to cook more food, not for fuel.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We used to do that not more than 100 years ago here in the United States. Like,
I know someone who used to get
buffalo shit patties. Like, that was about 150 years ago. It's just we actually are wealthy enough we can throw that shit away or repurpose it as fuel or other things because we don't need to use it for food.
Yeah, but that wasn't what he was talking about. I mean, I had a friend who used to use fish and chip oil, you know, from the shop, and he used to put it in his car, and his car stank of fish and chips. But he was a fucking trendy.
What kind of car was it, Gabby?
It was some kind of diesel, you know, he had some converter kit put on it so they could use biodiesel.
Do you know, I bet that was very useful, Cab, when he had a bird in the car with him, because you just whip it out and she'd automatically think it was a battered sausage.
Here's me Savaloid on it.
That is one of the problems with those alternative fuel vehicles.
Oi, Savaloid.
Well, and also, just while we're on the topic of agriculture, there's been 3 major improvements as far as the U.S. being a major agriculture producer that has let us produce the amount of food, specifically grain, over the past roughly 150 years. The first one being crop rotation, the second one being fertilizer, and the third being the combine.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we have the Amish to thank for that when we imported them as a fixed agricultural community block, hence why they get their own country within a country here. They're the ones who brought the crop rotation to America. So, I mean, like, we actually have the Amish to thank for that particular innovation. The combine is just part of manufacturing increases.
Oh, yeah, it made our productivity go up exponentially.
Well, yeah, I mean, getting back to the cotton gin, that's part of where that came from. I mean, after the cotton gin, agriculture got high-end manufacturing for the first time. Like, that's where you saw, like, automated plows and shit come from. Like, that's where the modern tractor comes from. It's from that push, because people realize that they can actually farm better than by hand. Go figure.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of the reason I brought up the cotton gin, not necessarily from an agricultural standpoint, but just from the fact that as mechanized production increases, productivity goes up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, goodness.
And then we got the Dust Bowl. That's where fertilizer comes in crop rotation. But
well, the Dust Bowl happened amusingly enough because we cut down the trees along the riverbanks. So that's part of the reason why there's more trees in North America than there was before we discovered it. So
it's all new growth too, because you need those you need the root balls to keep the soil from just turning into fucking gigantic dust storms.
So we need more trees.
Well, no, the trees were stopping the wind from coming down off the Rockies. So without the trees there, it just
yeah, but it's also the roots that bind the soil together.
Well, they'll help retain moisture, right?
Well, it's actually more the fact that it causes the soil to clump. Retaining moisture is a bonus, but it's not actually the main goal. The main goal is that the soil is too weak to stay down with the amount of wind that comes out of the Rocky Mountains. I mean, you're talking about average of 50, 60 miles an hour wind rolling down through the foothills without deep
so it holds it together.
Exactly. That's exactly what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And then by consequence, if that oil is staying there and staying more together, it can retain more moisture, where if we have more moisture in areas, that technically would limit potential temperature growth, right?
Yeah, actually, absolutely. That's exactly how that works.
Why are we arguing about like this whole like climate change thing? Why don't we just do like what we were originally doing and plant more trees if that would actually help?
Because
calm down,
politically solvent for adverts and guilt, shame. It's an original sin argument.
We don't make as much money doing things. Yeah, we probably shouldn't pollute as much either. But
well, yeah, but if you look at it, it's a religious indulgence. I mean, how is that any different than paying the Catholic Church an indulgence tax?
Yeah, and we nailed 95 theses on saying that seemed like a load of crap.
Just saying, it's a fucking modern religion. I was arguing this yesterday. It's a standard leftist state-based God religion, which we've seen for at least 200 years now. Why are you surprised they've come up with their own original sin argument? Like, it's dumb.
I mean, everyone has sin.
Yeah, but
the Bible tells us we have sin.
Yeah, but original sin has a very specific meaning within a religious context. Original sin is the great fall from grace moment.
Yeah, that's the Catholics, though. That's the extreme Catholics. They believe that
that's fundamental Christianity.
Well, fundamentalists.
Okay, so I have an analogy. I have an analogy here that will work.
That's free Catholicism. That goes back to the monarchist days.
Yeah, well, it's not part of the. It's not part of the Protestant belief, the English Protestants.
Here, still the same.
Maestra, you might go with me on this one.
Milton,
we don't believe in original sin.
Maestra, you might agree with me on this one. Hold on, Cabby. Maestra, you might agree with me on this one. A good parallel here for this would be when you have someone come out and say, well, we need to build more solar farms or more wind farms, or you need to drive more electric cars. Do you know the amount of energy, the amount of lithium that goes into these things? You think that's environmentally friendly? The lithium mining process alone causes more environmental harm, if you're going to go with that argument, than just drilling an oil well.
Maestro, that same thing was demonstrated with the, what did you have over there? It was like a cash for clunkers thing. We had an equivalent over here. Giving out money for these cars. So these cars could get recycled. The amount of money that was being used in order to produce the new cars and then to remove the old cars. I mean, it was effectively no benefit whatsoever. It was meant to be an environmental achievement, and it did nothing, because if those cars had been allowed to just continue running for the actual viable period of their lives, maintained and looked after, the emissions would have been relatively little compared to the emissions that were used in order to create the replacement.
And so the whole thing with cash for clunkers is they wanted you to go out and they would give you a subsidy to go buy a hybrid car. Mm-hmm. To be honest, the whole thing's a scam. If you go back to the early 2000s, some of you might remember this. Back when Al Gore released his movie An Inconvenient Truth, there was another interesting little thing. There's another interesting little policy that came out of that. It only lasted like maybe 2 years before it kind of just quietly went away. But before you boarded an airline flight, you could pay a quote carbon tax.
Oh God, that thing! Yes.
Yeah, you remember that?
Indemnity with your ticket.
Yeah, you could pay some extra money when you bought your airline ticket to reduce carbon emissions. Where do you think that money went?
That money went into their pockets because their seat size never got better. Their efficiency never got better.
You're damn right it did. The whole thing was a gigantic scam.
It went to them laughing at everyone who was willing to pay for this, thinking these fucking moronic peons. That's what the boardroom table was.
Like I said, it was a huge scam. It was like, wait a second, you're telling me that somehow by magically paying an extra $200 for an airline ticket, the jet engine on this fucking airplane is going to put out less emissions?
Absolutely. That's clear to everyone, Doku. How do you not understand the science? The science behind this great idea.
Apparently, I'm just not as brilliant as Miss Cortez.
Hey, Al Gore is our one-true savior. Right?
In the cockpit,
he's doing great work.
In the cockpit, there's a special button, and it says economy or sport. Now, if you don't pay for the
so I pay an extra $200 and I don't even get an afterburner option. Oh, come on, what is that ripoff?
Oh, that was a great arcade game. Oh, thanks. Afterburner.
A little bit of nostalgia there for you.
Oh, hell yeah. That was like 8 years old, 10 years old in the fucking arcade. That thing was great. The whole thing would move up, down, left, right. Oh, fully interactive.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But yeah, no, I mean, it's like the whole carbon emissions thing's a giant fucking scam. It's the same thing with recycling, really. I mean, the only tin, aluminum, and paper now, because they found a way to make paper more efficient, are actually any fucking good as far as recycling. You'll spend more money recycling any type of plastic. Any type of petroleum-based product is going to just fuck your monetary system. You spend a shit ton of money recycling it as opposed to just making new. I don't understand the purpose there other than feel guilty for the fact that you've committed this great sin, I guess.
Well, because of the turtles, mate. Because of the turtles. You got to remember the turtles that die eating, plastic bags, apparently.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that fucking gay shit.
Yeah.
It's like those poor fucking penguins that get caught in our evil six-pack plastic things. So therefore, cut them all, or you'll get fined.
You see, what I think is that we're trying to drag up the rest of the animals with us, right? I mean, we've had to become intelligent, right? We're the top of the food, right? So we're giving these challenges to these other animals, and maybe they can join us in the evolutionary momentum.
Well,
I mean, if they can work out how to avoid getting caught in a six-pack.
Well, I
maybe they deserve to live.
Really, I know you're being facetious, but we are actually doing that. If you look at the size of dog, and specifically the canine family, the size of relative skull and brain casing, it has exponentially gotten bigger over the last 75,000 years that we've been domesticating them. So I know that you're kind of taking the piss, but there's a damn good chance that we will have relatively intelligent, Palladium style dog pack kind of anthropomorphic creatures in a little while. Like I could see that
smart turtles.
Years or so.
Super smart turtles. They're going to be flying the.
Well, I mean, it's that or gay frogs. I'd rather have talking
dogs
and shit. That'd be kind of neat than gay frogs sitting around fucking up my day.
Eventually, we are going to have sentient, borderline humanoid animal, and finally Memes will be happy because he'll be surrounded by real furries, not just idiots dressing up in costumes.
Oh God, could you imagine what the fur community would do if there were actual anthropomorphic dog slaves?
Don't even go down that rabbit hole. Don't.
That'd be complete appropriation then. I mean,
somebody's gonna hit up Elon Musk.
Oh, Elon Musk already sent out the rocket for that. He's gonna be making cat girls.
God damn it, Memes.
Waiting for that.
The hell is that?
Memes found a theme song to a cartoon that was somewhat relevant to the conversation. God damn it, Memes.
Darryl.
Yeah, fucking turtles again.
Ninja Squirtles. Wait, that's
not
right.
I think that was a Pokemon.
Well, there has been the suggestion that people are actually trying to create a version of Pokemon in real life. They're actually trying to genetically manipulate them.
Who is trying that?
Oh, that is so dumb. Who would do that?
We have many pigs.
Elon Musk.
Oh God.
No, we're just talking about chimeras, right? Chimeras have gone back all the way through history. Yeah, it's not a new thing. They've been trying that for years, long time.
The problem is with the tech we've got nowadays, they're getting closer to be able to do that sort of thing. This is disturbing that people are actually doing this. I mean, I know I'd like to make the joke about, oh, won't it be great when we've got our own pet cat girls and whatnot, but people are actually trying to make this shit.
Well, in that regard specifically, I don't necessarily think it's coming from a point of just pure degeneracy. I think that's mostly coming from the fact that we are alone in the universe as far as we know. And being self-aware and alone is terrifying. So if we could make something else self-aware that we could interact with, especially one that we're the god of and better than, all that fits the human ego perfectly.
How'd you know I had a crush on Kat when I was a kid?
What?
Oh, Kat from Breath of Fire too. She happened to be a cat.
I thought you were talking about your pet cat.
So did I. That was the bit that was worrying me.
See, has fucking
individual you are.
Have the Terminator movies taught you nothing? Don't create. If you try to create genetically engineered cat girls or whatever, like they're gonna rise up eventually. It'll be fucking.
We should
all over
respect
again.
machine.
Why would you want to fuck a cat anyway? Even if it looks like a girl, it's like the idea of fucking a fish. I don't want a mermaid. Bollocks to that. I want something.
Wait, hold on, wait.
I want something
what part
with 2
is the
legs.
fish?
I want to be able to separate its legs, not its fins.
Memes,
So-
don't ask that question. I have seen the reverse Centaur crap from DeviantArt. That is a bad question. Don't go
Yeah.
down that rabbit hole.
Oh my god.
I agree. Don't
Oh
do
my
it,
God.
dude.
Ah.
Yeah.
Family Guy did a bit on this. We've all been referenced.
We've all been disturbed.
They did. And they regretted it afterwards.
I apologize to any children watching.
Oh, if there's any children watching this stream, where the hell are your parents?
What are your parents?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a fair
Yeah,
question.
any kids listening, you are trailer trash. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Back up, Brenda.
Cue Deliverance song. Why don't we have a soundboard for the
All right, we are racist, aren't we?
Jensen, you're a rubbish
What,
host.
white? I'm white. How can I be racist against my own people?
Trailer,
Hold up, everyone.
yeah, trailer,
Say again, B?
trailer is
I said,
trailer
Jensen,
people are not
you're a
a race.
rubbish host.
All right.
You have no soundboard.
Oh, darn. You know, it's not like I was exactly planning on doing this. Oh, no, that's right. It was dropped in my lap.
And you're breathing
There's
is
no
the worst sound effect ever.
Oh,
Shut up,
stop
woman.
moaning.
You all have permission to talk over B.
They do.
All
anyway.
right, Pussy Quinn. Sorry, we're gonna have to sacrifice you to Elon Musk. He has important research to do.
Yes, we have to launch you at the
We're,
sun.
we're not
for no apparent
sacrificing
reason.
B.
Tests.
Hey,
something.
hey, Doku. How about that for like genetically engineered centaurs? Check out the side chat there. Tell me what you think.
Oh, no. People keep posting. Fucks up my connection.
Oh my god.
Pure degeneracy. What can I say? That's what I'm.
Yeah.
You guys are all closet furries, aren't you?
Not really. There's
No,
nothing
no.
furry about
I
that. What's
can't-
wrong?
Oh,
fine.
not really. All right, so where on the furry scale?
There's a scale.
The what?
Well, yeah. Everything's a spectrum these fucking days.
As close as I come to a
Okay.
furry is the image
Start-
of the sideboard, which
Start
is
off.
perfectly
No,
human.
let's play. Okay, you entertained it. We're going down
shut
this
up.
road now.
Oh,
So
geez.
are you
Oh,
a
no.
gal?
Are we really?
Take an
Do we have
attractive
to?
girl.
Ah, for fuck's
Now
sake.
give that attractive girl ears. If she happens to have ears,
She has ears
she's still
already.
attractive. Yeah. Okay. No. Cat
Well,
ears.
if she didn't have ears, she wouldn't be attractive, would she? She'd just look like a freak without ears.
Okay, she is
Oh, see,
cat
now
Not
you're
ears.
just
attractive
body
look,
shaming.
having no ears. You certainly don't, especially if she doesn't have
And-
any.
and
She
now-
needs glasses.
and now
it's going to
give
be
her a
very
tail.
embarrassing.
I mean, they have
And then
butt
you
plugs
slowly
for that,
work your way there. You add the
Yeah,
claws
and-
in, and this and that, and XX Mrs. Memes. At
Why?
one point,
Why
she
would
had a
you
tail,
want
and it was very uncomfortable for her at the time.
No, you're
What?
just it's just nonsense. You're just delusional. You're just mental.
I thought it was strapped around her waist, but then I found out there were no straps to that.
This is.
Oh
you
my
see,
gosh,
it's not.
please
It's
don't
not
explain further.
normal.
What one may say that
It's not
while
normal.
on Valentine's Day, I may not have been able to make a caboose mistake.
Did you make a whoopsie?
Well, you did say you like touching soft things, so you know. I guess that was that evening sorted.
She had some.
Okay, so are there like nerve endings in the tail? Do you like stroke it and like the ears like twitch a little bit?
It was a dual action tail. A young lady could also use it for other things.
Oh my goodness, dude. Like, we all know what you're fucking talking about. Just let it go. Let it go.
You know, did anyone see that thing with the furry fest or whatever it was?
Rainforest?
You know, yeah, rainforest. What a fucking clusterfuck.
And that is far beyond the line of normal. That is just pure degeneracy.
What, are we
Yeah,
talking
but it
about-
shows you the mindset of these people, doesn't it? You know, it's where they're coming from.
Wasn't there another one?
This is their idea of fun. No, they tried to do it again, but they couldn't get anyone in the whole of Seattle, I think it was, because they all the hotels had notified each other.
But no, there
And
was
anywhere
there was
they
another
tried
one.
to get
There was
to.
like there was another like was it FurryCon or some I don't remember.
Well, where they were busted because they were actually like
Well-
having petting zoos that were horrifically inappropriate. Like,
Oh well, yeah, there
actually
is.
happened.
There
Like
is
a
that
whole
other
fucking
stuff.
furry convention
Yeah.
got busted because they had adult petting zoos. Enough said there.
Yeah,
Oh.
exactly.
Yeah,
Oh.
right.
I mean, we are. I mean, that is.
Oh, what are you
Yeah,
guys
seriously.
Did they have llama?
No, but look, it's like Medica's been exposing the, you know, the freaks who are into the, you know,
Oh, yeah, the
necrophilia of animals, you know, fucking roadkill and stuff. I mean, these people are fucked up, man. Anyone who wants to associate with that, you deserve all the fucking pain and all of the shit that you get because you associate with that, you are definitely tying your colors to the wrong banner. That's
Well,
what I'm sure.
I know the
Doesn't
video
that
you're
bring up the
talking
whole
about.
calling out within individual communities? Because many folks, regardless of whatever community you're in, if folks are doing sleazy shit, I mean, you should let them know that's not cool. And if folks aren't doing that, then other folks.
But these are the predominant ones. These are predominant ones.
When
These are
you're
the ones
talking about the,
organising conventions, for fuck's sake.
Like, Cabby, you're talking about the Care of the Wolf video, I think, right?
Yeah, he's talking about the zoo sadist shit, and there's a lovely update out of Cuba. If after you're done there, Doku.
Oh, I was just gonna say, at that point in time, you're not even involved in the furry community. That's just a straight up mental illness. Like,
no, actually, part of the major problem is that all of those people were not only accepted into the furry community, but they were accepted back after they were exposed for what the fuck they were doing. So, yeah, no, the zoo sadist shit with Snake.
No, these are degenerates, man.
Oh yeah, no, but the good news is that the worst one out of the group, not the fairy faggot that was courting everyone on with all the hearts and bullshit, but the one that was actually doing all the torture was down in Cuba. He got doxxed in Cuba, and they just found his corpse because apparently even the Cubans have an issue with people hurting small cuddly animals. So fantastic for them. I thought that was great. Like, I typically don't wish for someone's death, but this motherfucker.
Well, he should definitely get a Darwin Award.
Well, there's no actual crimes in Cuba for animal abuse. They don't have anything on the books, so it was a pure vigilante justice moment because he was made completely public. And on principle,
it's a Darwin Award.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely happy that he met his end because, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I'm not going to shed a tear no matter what. Like, I'm sorry, dude. Karma's a bitch, but guess what? You just got the strongest karma's a bitch experience of your life, or what was left of it.
Somebody got killed.
Yeah. No, one of the zoo sadists got outed. Because they found out who the fuck he was. The Kiwi Farms people went ahead and did that, and the general mob in Cuba decided that they were going to teach him the better moments of morality with a nice, good pitchfork and torches kind of little bit of education.
And actually, I don't think it was. If we're thinking of the same incident, I don't think it was in Cuba. I think it was actually in one of the South American countries, but not Cuba. But
you're thinking of the zoo sadist people like Snake Thing and Kiro the Wolf and all those guys, because that's who I'm talking about. I'm talking about.
That's the one. That's the one that I was referring to.
Yeah. That's the one I'm talking about. The one who actually killed the dogs and was such an asshole. He's the one who actually got his comeuppance because he lived in Cuba, which is why.
I'm thinking about the. I'm thinking about the one that Quartering did a video on with the kittens.
I have no idea about that. That sounds even more disturbing. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, let's just say.
Enough said.
I don't want to go into details on that video. It will piss you the fuck off. But if you want to know more,
no, I don't.
Go check out the Quartering.
Quarter pounder. I don't want to watch this shit.
I don't want to see the fat bastard.
Yeah, well, that particular video, he's the only one I saw cover it, and that's the last I heard of it. So I hope he got the same fucking treatment, because people like that are fucking garbage. And to be blunt, if you don't have any respect for life, you don't deserve to be on this world. That's my stance on it.
Yeah, but you see, this is what gets me with these furries and stuff. But it's sort of like degeneracy. It goes from, we're just having a bit of fun. And then people get a bit weirder and they experiment. And it's like, well, this is okay. We can go a little bit further and we can go a little bit further. And then the next thing you know, you're fucking roadkill. It's not a good, it's not an avenue that people should venture down. And the idea that it's just a bit of fun and people can, just, you don't know what kind of nutters you're attracting.
I'm just going to point out there are 3 digits that apply here. 2XS. Something that a lot of people now seem to believe is a good idea. And no matter how bad you think things can get, always try to take it one stage further. Honestly, I'm terrified of how bad things are going to get because humanity has an absolute fascination for degeneration, to be completely honest with you.
Hedonism. It does. History proves it, doesn't it, mate? Yeah, hedonism. It's the inevitable end before, you know, the falling of nations.
No, actually, this ties very well into the debate night stream that was on this same channel a few weeks ago, where if you have the moral degradation of society, you inevitably end up at points like this because, hey, yeah, let's not age shame, you know, let's not do that. Like the second that you tear away any kind of moral foundation because everything needs to be accepted, everybody needs to be tolerant, this is where you inevitably find yourself.
Well, you're not wrong. There's a huge difference though between tolerance and glorification. And I think that's the major issue, is the fact that people decided that tolerance needed to be glorifying whatever fucking sick, twisted degeneracy you're wanting to play around with today. And I don't think that that's healthy in any way for us.
Yeah, but Doku, that's the hedonism, because hedonism, you know, it hails the idea. But I don't even think the Romans were sick enough to fuck roadkill. I mean, I don't think even at the height of their day, Nero fiddling away with himself.
I don't know. The Romans got really fucking twisted there. Like,
I mean, at least Nero
well,
married his horse
Caligula
first.
married his corpse. Yeah, but I'm not sure he fucked it. Did he? I don't remember any stories of him fucking. Did he consummate that?
But they were into necrophilia. Caligula fucked his sister's corpse because she wouldn't bone him while she was alive. So I mean,
yeah, but
isn't the greater discussion here more of what we're actually boiling down to, like thoughts versus actions? Because somebody can have whatever thoughts they want, that's within their head. However, taking direct action against another human being or animal, that's actually bringing into reality fully.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I mean, there's a difference between fantasy and reality, but the problem is that, and this is what I see, and this is one of the things that drives me nuts with like the Lolicon argument and the Shotokan argument about the fact that it's just images, it's just in your head, it's not real. Well, believe it or not, at least when it comes to like extreme degeneracy, such as, you know, rapists and other non-consensual sexual partners, which typically involves, you know, child assault people who go after children, fantasy eventually stops working for them, so they have to go try it out for real. So I don't see a reason to do any sort of type of mitigation. I mean, there is no effective way that you can, you know, curb those desires that we know of yet. I mean, the best thing that we know of is, you know, the Russian method, you know, a nice good
Yeah, but the thing is that but you don't want to promote them, and you certainly don't want to make them seem as if they're, you know, somehow socially acceptable. You know, it's like, well, he's just a bit weird.
That's a cultural
thing. That's just the thing he's into. You know.
Well, actually, let's do a quick. If there's such a thing as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, let's do a hierarchy of degeneracy here.
Okay.
I would say
that's a good idea. Yeah.
All right,
I would say at the bottom of that. It's not sexualized. Like, let's say, let's look at like Lord of the Rings, or pick an anime. Yeah, you might have your cat girl, you might have your elf, you might have your dwarf, your hobbit, whatever. But it's not sexualized. It's there as just that's part of the world, so to speak.
Well,
then you can say
Galadriel.
But then you can say, well, yeah, Galadriel's hot. But then you could say, let's bump it up to where you get, you know, the what do they call? The Nakos, the cat girls, that kind of stuff, and it becomes, you know, sexualized. Let's make them kinky. You know, deviant art would be a prime example of this. Yeah, then you go a step above that, and it's okay. You want your girl to dress up and, like, you take your pick of a Halloween costume. You can see plenty of anthropomorphic Halloween costumes out there that people would consider sexy, but.
Well, there's the entire sexy genre for female Halloween costumes. I mean, that's a whole genre in and of itself.
And I would say the next step
But that's the
above
thing,
that,
right? Because
the next step above that,
yeah, but
you start taking that to a bit more of extreme. There's like your fursuits, your conventions. I'm not going to go as far as to say like rainforest or anything like
stop
that.
posting shit memes.
But then you go above that level and you end up with something like rainforest, where it's not just like, I like kinky anthropomorphic animals. It's like now you're talking about diapers and pooping and shit. And then you take it to the steps
Why are we
above
getting
that.
into this all
Well,
of a sudden?
that's
That's what happens. That's what happens.
intersexual sectionality.
Yeah, but that's,
But
yeah, but
I'm
that's
saying
the road
the
that
level
you
of
end up going
degeneracy.
down.
But I'm saying the level
That's
of
the road that
degeneracy
you
starts
follow.
increasing.
Oh, it can degenerate very
Exactly.
quickly when you get to that point. That's the thing. That's why you need good, strong communities. Be like, yeah, you shouldn't harm other creatures. That's not cool.
Yeah, but it's not harming other creatures, for fuck's sake. I mean, this is what I mean. This is
But
like
that's what you were
mental.
saying it was leading to.
No, it
If
isn't.
you're gonna
No, it's
harm
talking
another
about.
thing.
No, it's about. I mean, yeah, harming it, but we're just talking about they're in diapers and they're throwing their own shit around in car parks at, furry cons, for fuck's sake. I mean, these people are mentally, I mean, there is something fundamentally wrong with them. The idea that
you would have never had a long night of drinking and ended up in some shitty situation.
No, not what that means.
Memes, that's not the point.
Unfortunately not.
That's not the point. My
No.
point is when you start increasing, when things start breaking down, is when you can have your kinks. Don't get me wrong, that's fine. But the more and more and more you start normalizing things that are out of the ordinary, you eventually hit a tipping point where what is out of the ordinary becomes normalized, and then people keep going down that rabbit hole, despite how minuscule and small of amount that level of quote-unquote degeneracy might be. You do inevitably find yourself, like Cabby was saying, where you got people with this type of mindset who think it's okay to take a diaper and fling it around. That continues. That's where social pressures start to come, where it's like, this is not socially acceptable. This is moving past a kink. This is now devolving into degeneracy. There is a balance.
It's a shifting of the Overton window.
Yes, but you're not.
Again,
Yeah,
that's
but you're
exactly
not.
my
I know,
point.
but you're not allowed to use the degeneracy term anymore, right? Because that's somehow oppressing somebody's ability.
Well, apparently
to
that's
express
kink shaming
themselves
from
or
nowadays.
whatever.
Last I checked, if somebody
Yeah,
wanted to dress up in a sexy cheetah outfit as a Halloween costume, that was perfectly fine. Now apparently slinging diapers around full of human feces is apparently fine. There is a
food fight. Anyway, Doku.
Oh my god, did you say food? Oh my god.
Yes, I did just say poo fight.
God
The same
damn.
tone as fucking Animal House. Anyway, check out that.
Wait, would you call them Foo Fighters?
Side chat. No, I said poo fight. In this exact same term that the guys from Animal House were throwing food and shit when that moment came up, which is why Doku was like, "What?" But anyway, dude, check out that meme in the side chat. Like, I think it's rather appropriate for what you're discussing here. It's a whole list of degeneracy there.
But this is the problem. And it doesn't matter which kind of avenue that you go down. It will take you further and further if you get more and more engaged with people, and the more normalized anything gets, then the next thing becomes normalized. That's how it works.
And you're not wrong there. I mean, like, that's one of the frustrations I have with the gay community as a whole. It's like, the original argument was just give us equal rights and, marriage equality and we'll be fine. And now it's like, let us have 8-year-old drag queens because that's accepting. And it's like, fuck off, dude. What the hell are you doing?
Doesn't that go into the whole Papa Bill O'Reilly thing? It's like, once you do this, it opens the floodgate.
Yeah,
well, it's a slippery slope. And I don't understand why people don't understand the concept of slippery slope. It's like, like slippery slope. Oh, that's just the next.
Oh, God, list, dude. You didn't just send me a list. You sent me a compilation.
I sent you a meme. I sent you a great meme of degeneracy that goes through the whole thing in a lovely little breakdown of what's what, where it sits.
Okay,
well, here's a group. Sorry, Jensen.
All right, just for a sec. As a group, what would we define as the ultimate degeneracy? I mean, the top-ranked, oh my god, humanity needs to be wiped out now that we're considering this. Come on, guys, let's hear it. How bad does it get?
I would say it would be a tie between two things, which would either be necrophilia / cannibalistic actions and or pedophilia. Either one of those is a time to start fucking purging things with fire.
Okay, so basically, screwing dead children, then eating them, you would put as your number one.
Oh,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God.
If you're just gonna combine them for absolute offensiveness, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, no.
I was going to say they work individually. You don't have to do the two.
That's what I was going, Gabby. I was like, on its own.
What's Mexican sugar dancing?
That's actually.
You see, this is the problem. You see, this is exactly what we're talking about, Doku. You see, you normalize one and then you get both. You see, we're talking about one or the other, and it's like, okay, now we're just going to shove them together, and it's like, well, now that's the new extreme.
Actually, you know what? This is what I think really takes the cake. And this is probably as dark as my twisted dark mind can get, and that's saying something. Anything that involves young children, cannibalism, while they're still alive.
Oh, okay. So now we're upgrading it to eating them while they're still alive. You realize that you're pushing this down further on the fucked up scale.
Okay, now
I mean, you asked me what the number one was.
I can top this. Okay, like a human turducken. You know, like you get the
human
mother
centipede.
and you put the child inside it, and then you put the and that.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
where
God,
I'm
Cabby,
I
stop.
think that's the
Cabby,
birth thing.
stop.
That's called reverse birthing, and that's actually listed in that fucking meme I shared. Because that's
Yeah, it is. Cabby, stop.
It's at the bottom there with Mexican sugar dancing.
Yeah, we are.
well, and Ohio.
I can rock with the worst of them.
Generous place.
Okay, so what was this Mexican sugar dancing thing? I think I must have missed this.
Oh, that's a joke. It's like Ohio. Mexican sugar dancing is a really shitty type of salsa that you see. It's just, it's right up there with just funny shit because that's like too much of that thing is just disturbing.
Okay, all right, cool. Cheers. So basically, we're accepting anything involving children and eating is where you're going for as the ultimate in. Wow, we need to die.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Okay.
I think that level of fucked uppery, you're looking at something pretty severe,
Okay.
and I don't really think that there's a lot of fixing that at that
Memes?
point.
Your turn, mate.
By the way, the whole point of cannibalism, the reason that humans don't do it is because of the pathogens or whatever that can be transferred. So you can get ill. If you eat a sick person, chances are you're going to get their illness.
Oh,
Well,
no,
even if
I
you eat a healthy
agree.
person, the prions that we produce in our nervous system.
So yeah, the prions. Thank you. Prions.
Yeah, we're too
Yeah,
close
yeah.
in genetic makeup. We tend to avoid things like
Exactly.
that just because it doesn't go well.
Yes.
No,
So that's
I'm just
why
kind of
people-
curious because
Bad idea.
I saw like Mexican sugar dancing, Ohio, which I'm not sure, but that seems to be on the bottom of the rung along with concrete.
Oh yeah. Oh god. Yeah. That was a Darwin Award when I was in fucking high school. Some fucking dumbass bag from San Francisco decided to have a concrete enema and killed himself because of it.
Wait, hold on. Wait,
Wow.
was it hardened concrete or
Quick
was
concrete.
No, that was an unverified award.
I said it was a Darwin Award. This
Yeah,
is from high school. I don't know if it's true or not.
Was he?
Well,
was
no,
he
because
goofing?
but the thing is, they have verified and unverified ones. So you have kind of like a notice, and it's sort of like, well, if this really did happen, he deserved it. I think it was like a nominal one. I don't think he got a full Darwin Award for that one. I remember
Yeah,
when
Cabbage
he
used to run a
died.
site that did involve that at one.
I did.
And actually, I just had a quick thought here, but I think the linchpin and the morality argument is when human beings start viewing other human beings as being either animals or lesser than animals. I think that's when you really start going down that slope and there's no coming back.
Well, no, I mean, this is the thing. Like humans, they went from personnel to becoming human resources, right? There's a mindset change. You know, these are these are where the problems come in when you start looking at it from perspectives. And it's are you there to be utilized? If you are, then I can do it with you as I wish. You know, I mean, this is exactly what you had in the, back in the neo-feudal times.
Well, and this is just something, and yes, I will call me a weeaboo all you want, But this is something that I will say that has been brought up in anime before when it comes to like, the cat girls and, whatever anthropomorphic creatures, is where certain societies will view them, despite the fact that they might display human emotions, speak the same language, have literally everything in common with a human except, some cat ears and a fucking tail, but yet are treated as garbage, like lesser than human. That's where you kind of start balancing the scales a little bit.
Though, that's typically done the same way that Star Trek does it, where it's like they're an alien race that has one side of their face black and white, the other side of their face is white and black, and therefore, it's a conversation about how actual, people interact as the main character goes through whatever trials and tribulations that make up the story. That part doesn't bother me, for the most part. That's the same thing that you've seen in fiction all the time. It's like, here's something that absolutely reminds you of like the Franks or the Gauls, but this is instead orcs or goblins or whatever. And therefore, we're going to have a political discussion without actually having a political discussion because these aren't real, peoples and yada yada. I mean, like that.
Yeah, but there's a difference between mythical creatures and people who anthropomorphize.
Well, the thing is, I'm using it more as a narrative. I'm using it more as a narrative example, as to where you start drawing the line between when you're starting to go down that slippery slope of, not prejudice, because people are always going to be prejudiced. Like, hate to break it to you, SJW, but guess what? Everybody has an internalized bias. It's normal human nature. If I see a white dude walking down the street with a gun...
Are you shitting me? SJWs are the ones with the most internalized fucking...
Oh, I know, but this is my point. If I see a black dude walking down the street in a fucking suit and tie, and a white dude walking down the other side of the street with his fucking pants pulled down with what looks like a gun to it, I'm walking on the side of the street with the black dude, hands down.
So you're avoiding my cousin.
Bias. What was that, Memes? But did you have
You
something
were avoiding one of my cousins because you kind of described...
Yeah, well, maybe the black guy was the white guy's pimp.
I'm just...
Well, we need to be inclusive here. No. And here's the thing. It's like when you start to describe it from a narrative format, I mean, you start getting into like kid shows like Sonic the Hedgehog and shit like that. The Tale of the Freedom Fighters versus the evil Dr. Eggman, Dr. Robotnik, and stuff like that. And if you look at it, it kind of almost goes into like where Mr. Rogers was kind of coming from before. He's like, you can have a kid, and as an adult, if you try to ask a kid questions, they might not communicate. But if you ask it with a puppet, they may be more willing. So is it really a surprise? You have a lot of like these kid shows where it's Ninja Turtles, Sonic the Hedgehog, or whatever. They've anthropomorphized things to help folks feel more comfortable with them.
No, come on. I mean, that's being done all the time.
Legitimate kid programming and real quick.
Yeah, but I mean, that's imagination. It's working with kids' imagination stuff. That's not actually telling them that they should adopt this as a personality, or they should interpret themselves.
Cabbage, I have one question for you. Do you consider Lois Griffin hot?
Lois Griffin?
Would you bang Marge Simpson?
Yeah, from Family Guy. Peter.
Yeah. Well, I think Quagmire gets better.
It's the nose, isn't it?
Yeah, and also the whiny voice. Yeah, you wouldn't want to hear that.
I find both of those things.
Yeah, the nasal voice.
Just real quick to finish my point.
And the thing is, I'd do Barney's wife before I did Fred's.
Just real quick to finish my point.
You're going to do a dinosaur?
Oh,
you're scaly
damn it.
too. Welcome to the
club. So real quick to finish. Damn it, Kevin. Hold on. Real quick to finish my point.
What?
There is that idea of bias and prejudice, which has always existed.
What's going on?
There is that idea of bias. God damn it, Cabby. There is, you bastard. Well, you are a Cabbage Patch bastard. So what do I expect? There is that idea of a bias and prejudice that has existed within humans and still exists to this day. And I'm sorry, no matter how hard you try, it's always going to be there. There is a moral line, though, that you do inevitably cross, and that's when shit starts to get fucked up. And we're starting to see it. And it's becoming normalized, and that's the problem. Where, it's okay to be a fucking prick. Not only is it okay, it's encouraged.
No, I don't think it is okay. I think the problem is that people are turning blind eyes too often. They're saying, well, we're not allowed to say anything, right? Because everything is being shut down. Conversations are being shut down by these so-called social justice warriors who want, to promote an open conversation with everyone. But all they're doing is shutting people down because everyone is just appalled at the kind of shit that's coming out. I mean,
Well, I mean,
isn't that I don't know, it's like, good manners or whatever. Just people are just saying, well, I don't agree with it, but I can't really say anything about it because apparently this is now acceptable. I see it in the papers because all these people are telling us that this is how society works now.
Well, no, we should be able to have free civil discourse as long as you're not harming or inciting to violence against another human being. And I really think, like, guys, like, isn't this like the test of like humanity when we're talking about morality?
But it isn't,
and stuff?
right? No, because look, you look at a furry, right? A furry doesn't like a person doesn't get up in the morning and put on a furry suit and go wandering down to his local newspaper store, get his milk and his tea and his newspaper and wander back home again in his furry suit. Like there's absolutely nothing, remotely odd about that. The only way that these people
have you seen commercials for some of these snuggies, Cabby?
Have you seen Portland, guys?
No. Cabby, that's part of somebody's potential identity that they don't actively always share. That's the thing. It's a personal thing. If somebody wants to do that, they have the right to do it. But folks might kind of like.
Yeah, but I'm saying they don't. I'm saying they
Christ,
don't, and the reason they don't is because they know there's something fundamentally fucked up about them, wanting to pretend to be a
we're all kind of fucked up.
Yeah, but just different levels of fucked up.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be entirely normal.
Scales, right? Everything's a spectrum, right? It's all a spectrum, man.
If it interferes in an individual's life and the relationships with the folks involved, yeah, that might be a problem. But that's something like a community, your family, and whatever like support network you have. No, the reason why I say this is because there's certain things where if something seems wrong, like if all of a sudden somebody's going to harm a child, I think within most people, like the vast majority of folks, like you're going to feel something like visceral, like something just kind of like tenses inside you, and I think that might be kind of pointing to our morality. Yeah. Does everyone's morality a little different depending on your life, your experience, and how your DNA is set up? Sure, I can understand that, but I think this is the test, kind of finding the balance, being able to be inclusive while not actually going down the path of like complete and utter like harm. It's the reaching Tao, dude, and that's hard.
It's horseshit. No, it isn't. The whole point is that you are. Once you enable people and you say, oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. Oh, yeah, you should dress up like that. People will really respect you while you're laughing behind your hand. And, telling these people that this is a positive move for them, it's going to empower them. How the fuck does dressing up in, some silly little suit empower you in any way, shape, or form? It doesn't.
Let me ask you this question, Cabby. Let me ask you this. This is the way I look at it.
Okay.
The majority of people inherently have a moral compass. It might swing a bit to the right. It might swing a bit to the left, a little bit up, a little bit down. Yeah. But most people, well-grounded people, have an idea of what's right and wrong. If you're a little bit weird, you're a little bit weird. But it's when you start normalizing the fringe elements, the very far extremes, that's when you start to see the really fucked up side of society. And trying to normalize that is when you go down that slippery slope.
Well, that's what I mean. That's exactly what I've been saying.
The problem is,
it might start out benign.
But it happens with, appeasing people's, like, ridiculous ideas. It's like, oh, well, it's okay to be a fox. It's like, oh, yeah, you can do that. And then next thing, somebody's fucking roadkill. It's just weird. I mean, this is like how Ed Gaines ended up with his reputation.
The problem we've got is that with the normalizing of the way things have gone, is people will start seeing that as acceptable. And unfortunately, humanity, as I said earlier with the 2XS, people will want to go to the next stage because after all, furries are now normal. So therefore, what else can we go for? So the question is how bad do you really think humanity is actually going to get? Or are we going to be lucky enough to wipe ourselves out by that point?
All right,
Opinions, please.
if you want a fictional example of this, look at Warhammer 40K and Slaanesh with the Dark Elder.
Yes.
That's a perfect example.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's exactly what you're describing. You're describing a hedonistic culture that takes itself so far in the extreme that it creates a fucking demon god that wants to eat them because they're fucked up. Like that's ooh. Yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean,
Their demon god
the
has
hell-
6 tits and compels them to go out and eat or murder other races for the sake of eating them, either alive or dead.
mhm.
Yeah,
While
look
getting
at
off while
Hellraiser,
doing it.
Look at
Well, but I
there's
mean,
loads of
I'm only
examples of
partially.
this, especially from Hollywood, and these are the most deviant fuckers on the planet.
Yep.
You know, I mean, look at all the stuff that's coming out of Hollywood. I mean, this really shows you what happens when you really put your imagination into practice, right? Because they come up with some very strange shit.
Wait, you don't have an imagination?
No, there's having an
I
imagination.
have an imagination, but
Go on,
and
carry
that's
on.
implementing it, and that's the difference. It's adoption of it. It's you know, like I said, look, most, and I think there's a maturation issue here as well. It's sort of like this infantilizing thing. Right? Most people like dress up and things like that. That usually goes when kids are about sort of 10 or 11, and they realize that they look pretty fucking foolish. You know, they want to be they want to seem more mature, or they would used to do. I don't know about now because everyone is infantilized for so long. So you got the reason that you got this, delayed development people. I mean, this is emotional retardation with infantilization. It's sort of this weird combination. That's the only way that I could see that people really believe.
Miastra, what's the words? What's the
For what? Exactly.
What do you say?
Abby's spot on. He's talking about emotional retardation through infantilization. That is actually a thing. That is spot on what it is. It's either that or you're talking about a delayed growth or adolescence, but that's not what we're experiencing. What we're experiencing as a culture is an entire group of people that are choosing, instead of growing up and stop playing dress up and make believe, or getting their fictional things from stories, entertainment, stuff like that. They're trying to live it. So it is a retardation through infantilization, because why else do you think people are allowed to cry about their fucking feelings? I mean, nobody cares if an adult's going to whine at you about the fact that they've had a shitty day. Unless you're actually invested in the person, it doesn't matter. Like Cabby's spot on.
And even then, they usually don't care because they've had a shitty day as well. It's like, they're just sharing shitty experiences.
They're invested in you enough to at least pretend to give a shit.
Exactly. I know what you mean. I know.
But
you share your shitty experiences. You share your shitty experiences. It's all good.
God damn it, memes.
Memes, would you stop fucking doing that?
No, that's the excuse that I used to use. I'm like, I don't want to buy toys as a kid, but unfortunately, they've recently gone bankrupt.
Well,
anyway,
you can never be a furry giraffe, memes. Sorry to break it to you.
Hey, don't hate on Jeffrey. And XX Mrs. Memes didn't believe in giraffe.
What?
Here's the thing: if you want to dress up in a fursuit and dance around in your basement, listening to Madonna or something, I couldn't give two shits less. I really don't care. But when you start going around actively looking for roadkill for erotic reasons, you might want to seek some help.
Well,
you're disagreeing.
Realistically, there's two separate conversations happening here right now. Okay, and they're both interspliced. But the first conversation is what is truly fucked up and degenerate, and then what is truly fucked up and degenerate to do in public. Those are two separate.
Actually, it seems like there are people who are trying to define, the fucked up people, and then there are people who are trying to excuse people who are being fucked up and degenerate.
Well, yeah.
Okay, here's a better question.
Nobody.
Here's a better question, Maestra.
Shit in your own place, but they really fucking seem to matter if they have to walk down the street and they just have to see you in a PVC leather suit or some shit. Like, I don't want to see that when I'm buying groceries. I don't care if you're like a 10 hot. I don't fucking care. I'm buying milk. Leave me the fuck alone.
But that was the exact same excuse used for having like gay and lesbian folks like having public displays of affection.
Well, they have marches like that now. Anybody remember the slut march? You think that's publicly acceptable? Pretty sure if I walked around like that in public, I'd be arrested.
there is a distinct difference between two adults holding hands or kissing like a married couple does occasionally in public, and people outright fucking on the public park bench. I mean, that.
Well,
Yeah, and also,
but that wasn't the example.
No.
Yeah, but Maestra as well. I would point out that.
One second. The thing, I'll let you talk. I want to rebut.
You'll let me, will you? Oh, I'm being allowed.
I'm not gonna
he's butch. He's butch. I like that. Oh, I'm getting quivers.
There is a distinct difference between somebody walking around with like a horsetail butt plug that you can see the tail of, right, and two people holding hands. There's a huge difference between those two things.
You're talking about the insertion of a sexual device.
Yeah, you said that three times. Yeah, but it's like the difference between when people were going back to what you were originally saying, Maestro. Actually, when gay people wanted their rights, the gay people were not out demonstrating. Certainly not any way, shape, or form like, say, the suffragettes or something. Yeah, they really didn't demonstrate. People recognized that, people do what they do, and gays have always been around, and so we just. That's just how it is. So that the rights were given, and then you go from that point to people dancing on a fucking float with assless chaps, molesting children.
Yeah, no,
this is the fucking translation. This is not like Alan Turing, the poor bastard who ended up committing suicide after he was chemically castrated because he was being gay, right? And we go from that to actually recognizing that this is a bad way of treating people, to promotion. This is a lifestyle promotion now. Now, originally, it was meant to have been something that you just are, right? I mean, that's the one thing that they used to argue, is that this isn't a lifestyle. We didn't choose to be this way. You can't electrocute the gay out of it, right? That was the whole point of it. But now, apparently, it's just a fucking lifestyle choice.
Well,
they've gone completely the other way.
From accepting folks to shoving it down someone's throat. Because, like, everybody likes to buy and shit like that. Nobody likes to be sold. That's kind of like what I'm hearing a bit.
Well, again, like what I was trying to express, there's a difference between accepting that gays are allowed to, be a couple, right, publicly without any form of physical assault or sure, you can exude social pressure and social shaming, but you're not allowed to fucking beat the crap out of them or drag them behind your car anymore. There's no gay panic. But
nobody's bothered.
Well, but it's something else entirely if you're talking about, two men or two women will typically just get an audience. But for our argument, two women,
oh, come on,
heavily petting or some shit, that falls under public decency laws. You're not allowed to actually have sex in the park. The same thing goes for like.
That's just actions, though. That could be of whoever it is. Doesn't matter if it's a furry. Doesn't matter if it's a straight couple. Doesn't matter if it's a gay couple.
I mean, furry,
furry are doing that too. Like that's why I took exception to the argument, because you're talking about public displays of exhibitionism. You're not talking about public displays of affection. They are
exactly.
No, that's not what I was talking about. No, I was referring to basically if you have individuals, the exact same context, whatever the relationship may be between the partners. Like as long as it's the same actions, I mean, if they're not bothering anybody, who cares?
Okay, well, so that means, if nobody bothers, well, we had a couple called Fred West and his wife, and
that was
they had a few, exactly, they had a few issues, but hey, they just went along together because they both agreed with it. That's fine.
Okay, I want to throw some out
16 dead people later.
And funny enough, it is actually to Cabby. Right, with all the advances we're getting in tech, would you consider it acceptable for a person to allow their fantasies to run free? And yes, you can send your imagination wherever you want with that. But if it was done in a virtual world, would you consider that an acceptable thing? Or does that still offend your personal sense of morality? And I mean no judgment with those words.
No, I think it's a fair question, but that's exactly the same concept as if you were doing it in reality. Because because once you've done it virtually, then it would become, you could then probably bring it back into reality, right? I mean,
no.
unless you're permanently in that state, right? I mean, are you talking about somebody in a permanent state of, like, you know, uploading their brain, so they're not actually human anymore, so they can't interact in a human basis?
No,
I think you're talking more like a dot hack or like a full-on VR simulation where you have
right, exactly,
all five.
yeah. In which
Okay,
case, that would just be the corruption tool. I mean, that would be the thing which would normalize it.
Let's keep this
what I
simpler.
was saying with that. All right. Do you guys understand the term SimSense, i.e. simulated sensory technology?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I just wanted to make sure we're both on the same page with that. If a person wants to commit their activities in SimSense...
It used to be called Dildonics, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Did not know that. Thank you for that information.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you consider it acceptable in a virtual system for people to commit whatever acts they damn well want to, no matter how debased they are in standard human
but that's exactly the point. But that's the point I was making. Because if you are fine if you do totally upload yourself, but if you are actually going to go into that as an immersion, and then come back to the real world, then you will have been desensitized, and so you're more likely to act upon those whims when you're in the real world. So no, it would be a hideous thing to do.
No, but the issue you run into. No, but the issue you run into there, kind of, Jensen, is you're playing the simulation theory card at that point. If you go into a full-on simulation, and if it's okay within the simulation, if folks argue that we live in a simulation, by that logic path, that would make whatever okay.
Well, I'm going to take an opposing view here. Who believes that video games increase violent tendencies?
No, not really.
That's part of the argument, because you're arguing that he's...
No, actually, no. I'd say that it definitely changes attitudes. But I wouldn't say it changes
violence is decreased across the board.
No, because the thing is, because the thing is that people really understand that there's consequences with violence, right? If you try to punch somebody, you know damn well that you might end up in an emergency room, right? So there's a very different thing with violence when it comes to interacting, you know? So that's the reason that you can use those as a way of kind of like of expressing it, because you can't do it in reality. So it's a way of actually venting.
Right. It's a level of catharsis, and I tend to agree that I think for probably the vast majority of folks, it does provide catharsis, but there could be a very small number of folks that it may actually, like you said, do that desensitization, and that's why the results are inconclusive, but you don't see any actual results saying yes, it does.
Wait, I'm gonna make an argument real quick, if you don't mind here, Cappy.
No, I mean, but I'm just going to quickly agree with you on that regard, because I mean, there are going to be people obviously who are going to think, doing GTA and things like that, and they've been in court. People know, I mean, there are examples of these people, and so they can't distinguish between the two.
Well, I'm going to make this argument. These individuals that would go out and carry over these fantasies or virtual realities or whatever it is, and carry it out and engage in the real world as if it were still that same virtual world, or if it were a video game, we're already capable of that anyways. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. I think time would do that.
Well, from a neuroscience and longitudinal study across multiple continents and cultures, that is the case. If you are predisposed and selected biologically and or through your developmental factors, so something fucked up happened to your childhood, so you have no empathy, those kind of things, then video games will greatly desensitize you towards being violent to other people. If you're not predisposed to that, then it has no effect. It actually is a violence reducer, because if you're pissed off, you'll go kill things in like Warframe or Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, well,
and then you're over it. That is the majority.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, Doku. It's an opportunity to vent, right? Which is what normal, humans want to find a way to vent. I mean, if you like, one person might play a particular fighting game, or somebody else might go and punch a punch bag. Go to the gym and let off the steam that way. I mean, but it's a way of letting off steam. But it's the mindset that you have, and so if you go into that virtual space, and you are going to be influenced in that way.
Well,
especially if
that's the thing, though. This is a Pandora's box, though, because I think if you're predisposed to those kind of actions, regardless of whether or not you're going to have any sort of cathartic release, if you have no cathartic release, I don't think it's going to matter one way or the other. Eventually, you're going to snap because that's that's the personality type. It doesn't matter if it's the real world, a virtual world, a video game. I think those kind of people with that sort of predisposition are going to eventually do something bad.
That's what I mean.
It could. That's the thing. It can go both ways. Oh, sorry to cut you off, Miastra, but I just want to get this one point in real quick. It's when we're talking about this, it's one of those things where we just don't really seem to know, because if it does provide catharsis for a majority of folks, and if a small number of folks, why could they not also get catharsis? But at the same time, if they don't necessarily have that mental border or association of other people and stuff like that, it at times, depending on their state, it could also exacerbate it too, could it not?
Okay.
Well, exactly, but this is a major part of it.
For fuck's sake. All right, there's actual longitudinal, long-term studies that have been done on this. There's neuroscience in on this. This is not speculation anymore. There's a huge difference between physical aggression. So in that case, punching a punching bag, and the neurochemicals that you release when you do so, and simulated graphic violence, aka playing a video game. You release different chemicals within your brains when you release that stress. What happens is it causes a pacification and a relaxing event within your own mind when you play video games to relieve stress. When you actually go out and get physically aggressive, like punching a punching bag or doing martial arts or kicking the crap out of a dumpster,
it's adrenaline.
That actually brings out different chemicals that reinforce aggression in the real world. So if you're talking about a virtual sim, unless your brain is fucking broken from either being born fucked up or experiencing something in your childhood to the point where you are fucking damaged. There's a difference between feeling sad and being clinically depressed. Clinically depressed is a mental disorder because you can't change the neurochemistry in your own brain. This is no longer something that's up for proven fact science.
We move on.
Why? Because I just made my point, Cabby? Are you tired?
No, because I'm just saying that, but you've already said it, and we've been saying the same things over and over again. It's the same fucking I mean, this is exactly it.
Because you guys are still going to put a battery over fixed science. There's a difference.
No. It's not about, it's just because you want to quote something and then, claim that you got some kind of superior knowledge. No, we've already quoted this. We've already pointed this out, and you've just validated exactly what's already been said. So it's not like anything's been said. Exactly. So it's just an update. It's not exactly, it's not original thought, is it? Okay. It's not original thought.
There's no reason.
But there's a difference between the gaming side. There's a difference between the gaming thing and the furry thing. Because the furry thing is a sort of weird lifestyle choice. Rather like I said, when you're looking at the gay idea and people are saying that, gay isn't a lifestyle choice, it's what you're born with and things like that. And then it turns into a lifestyle choice. And that's the problem with a lot of this. This is exactly what we were talking about before.
Okay. Yes,
this is what we were talking about. This is what we were talking about before you went off on your little tangent.
Mm-hmm. Whatever you say, dude.
Cabby got confused and a little aggressive because we asked him about Lois Griffin, and then we slightly broke him.
No, Lois. Like I said, Lois is just not doable. I mean, I did say I'd rather do.
Oh, we can agree to disagree there. No, but
I like a little Eastern stuff.
Okay. Oh well, that's fine. Hey, to each their own. Nothing wrong with that, man. But I got a slightly related self-study going into what actually Miestra was bringing up there. So when you were talking about the games and stuff, and then hitting a punching bag, when I actually actively was
No,
going
that's
to
what
the
I
gym
said.
for a while. Okay, that's okay. You were both making
Oh,
references
fuck.
that I'm combining in this instance. I would go to the gym, and while I might not be playing a video game, I would play very aggressive music, and I would kick the absolute shit out of that bag. I'd do like front kicks, this, that. Yes, I was the dude wearing like arm and leg weights, beating the shit out of that because I'm simulating Goku's training on like King Kai's planet and stuff. Yes, I'm a weeb. I have to fucking accept that. But I was going at it. But when I would go to concerts and stuff as well, I would listen to the similar music, and I would also get into mosh pits. And I ain't gonna lie, dude, when that music comes on, it was connecting and firing some neurons that it
but that's
was
just like
aggressive
any kind of
impulses and you're
tribal
moshing.
dance.
But
Yeah,
I
but
do
that's
think you can
tribal
put a
dance,
barrier
though.
because there's also a code. There's a certain moral code to the pit as well, in that you don't just sock somebody, and if somebody gets knocked down, you immediately pick them up. And that was like the old code of the pit. And I'm starting to. I hope it's still that way. I haven't been in a pit for a while, but it's just if somebody gets knocked down, somebody just starts like putting boots to them. Like that's not something that's culturally acceptable in like mosh pit. Like I'm giving an example. I'm curious what you guys think.
Well, that kind of goes back to my original point: is with the morality of society, you're always going to find people. It doesn't matter if you're engaging in something in real life or a virtual world. There's always going to be that variable. You're always going to find someone who cannot separate fantasy from reality. They might not be the majority, but they do exist. And in that instance, there's not really a whole hell of a lot you're going to be able to do to change that. And that's kind of where the gray area exists. And that's why conversations and debates like this exist, because we don't really know one way or the other.
No, we do, because there was loads of examples over history. The problem is that people seem to fail to learn from them, because we have seen these things happen over time. We have seen how hedonism, rises up, whether it was, the Viking times. I mean, going back to, ancient British history, you can look back in all of the histories, all the way back to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Well, and that's the thing.
It's not like it's a new experience.
Well, that's the thing. People like Nero. People thought Nero was completely normal until he proved he wasn't. You can't predict these things.
You're talking about
Nero was freaky, but Caligula was worse.
No, if you're talking about
was definitely debauched.
Go on, Maestra.
I was just gonna say, if you're talking about Nero himself, a lot of the rumors for Nero, he got the what's her name, Marie Antoinette treatment in history. Like he was in the other side of the fucking empire when Rome burned to the ground, for example. So a lot of things about him are Jesus, dude. A lot of things about him in particular are completely and totally refuted between the oral rumor mongering and the written actual facts. The written facts was he was in fucking Constantinople when Rome burned to the ground. And that is a proven historical fact. However, everyone still goddamn believes that he was sitting there playing a goddamn
Maestra, the easiest thing to disprove. Maestra, the easiest thing to disprove that is that the fiddle wasn't even invented in that time. I mean, the fiddle wasn't invented until I think it was about the 1600s. Anyway.
A lute and lyre are the things that...
Yeah, well, exactly. But he wasn't playing a fiddle. That's the point.
No, it was a lute and a lyre, actually.
Christ almighty, you can't even tell. Even when I'm fucking telling you, it's like, hey, I agree. It's like, here's a little bit of Jesus.
Okay, hold on.
Anyway, I was saying the point that Caligula is the one that most people actually mean, because Caligula is the one that was debauched, right? He was the one that was really into all the hedonism and everything, and the Pope as a horse and stuff. I mean, he was mad as a hatter.
Okay, either way, I wasn't trying to go for historical accuracy to make my point. My point is, with most of these individuals who won't be able to separate fantasy from reality or act out upon their fantasies and become detached from reality, or individuals who lack their moral compass, more often than not, you're not going to know it until it's too late. But that doesn't happen very often, which is why they get talked about a lot, because it's not the vast majority of individuals. And again, we'll go back to the 90s argument against Mortal Kombat. They think kids playing Mortal Kombat are going to go out there and start trying to rip each other's spines out. quote me one article where that actually ever happened. Yeah,
but
it's this kind of false equivalency.
Well, Doku, the only thing I can think of that's remotely close to that was people took a bunch of meth and acid and decided to play video games and then killed each other because someone was, quote, cheating. But
that's why you don't do drugs.
But Doku, the main reason that sort of happened was because kids were imitating. We had that with the Power Rangers over here, and kids were imitating Power Rangers and they're like doing play fighting. But kids, like boys, always play fight anyway. They were just using a different play fight. They could have been play fighting like we used to do as kids, you know, with swords. You know, you make a sword or you get a bow and arrow, you know, and you make your own little shield. And we were doing it in the context of, you know, medieval England. I mean, you're just going to emulate
some good
something,
swords
right?
I found off the ground that were just tree sticks.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
So you just emulate
or like when you
something.
play cops and robbers or cowboys and Indians on the playground as kids. Okay, so how about this then? I'll reframe the argument a little bit. That might be more accurate. There is, from a societal perspective, a false equivalency between fantasy and reality and normal people. And when somebody who is, you know, a little detached from reality, you know, a little bit cuckoo, that gets blamed on these things in the vast majority of normal people who enjoy what the false equivalency is levied against. Yeah, just because I play GTA doesn't mean I'm go out and try to fuck a hooker and then shoot her in the head and steal the money back and then go, you know, rob or steal a cop car or something. Most normal, well-minded individuals aren't going to do that. But the false equivalency is giving to a game like Grand Theft Auto or something, because people look for a blame because most normal, logical people who have a moral compass don't have a real way to explain how the minds of these individuals work. Because, to be blunt, they're crazy. They're detached from reality.
We look for reasons why people do things, and we're pattern recognition creatures, so we look at patterns. Oh, look, Mortal Kombat is out. Oh, look, a terrible thing happened. Therefore, this was Mortal Kombat.
Well, prior to Mortal Kombat, does anybody remember Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest?
No, sorry.
Wow, it's been a long time since I played that.
Tie this in. Okay, back during the 1980s, early 90s Satanic Panic, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest was a game that was promoting these things. And it turned out to be absolutely not the case. Go figure. I guess you decide not to eat someone's living spleen because you know, killed Dracula with a crossbow. But, I mean, that's the earliest example of video games lead to moral degradation. Or simulations lead to moral degradation. Because there was another one about The Sims itself when it first came out in 1996, where The Sims is leading to moral degradation. Because The Sims is simulated life, so therefore you can do all kinds of evil, twisted shit, which you really couldn't. But that was the fear.
I mean, I guess if building my own house and finding a wife and getting a car and going out and living the white picket fence American dream is considered evil, then yeah, I guess.
Well, nowadays it is.
But where that ties into where the culture is taking a weird fucking turn is much to what Memes was saying, where us being pattern recognition, we don't want to actively hold a human being into account. We would much rather blame something else in that ancient miasma theory way, where it's just bad air.
No, absolutely, and that's what I don't. Jesus. But that exactly, and that's the bit I don't get is why people aren't going to be actually held accountable for their own decision making. Because this just you know, I'm allowed to do it. Nobody's telling me not to do it. I mean, you actually get people promoting you to do it. So why wouldn't you do it if you have that mindset to begin with? It's
if something's wrong, it should be wrong. And that's where like a strong culture comes in. It's like regardless of wherever you live or whatever communities you're associated with, you should have a strong culture to try to help guide you, or at least provide like some general like structure for folks have done this. This doesn't go well, or this is a violation, or you're harming other individuals.
Memes, you mean like the nuclear family, the actual thing that made America great?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty solid thing. It was a good dream, just like Doku and Miestra was saying. It's like, if you want to have a white picket fence, get married, have 2.5 kids and a dog and half a cat. Nothing wrong with
Half a cat. What have you done with the other half?
Except
You
nowadays,
said
of
two and a
course,
half
that's
kids.
considered wrong. That's the
No,
thing
hold
to
up.
remember. Nowadays, people consider that an unacceptable way of looking at things.
Oh yes,
Well,
it's
seems
the
kinda silly.
patriarchy.
For
Yeah.
that,
The patriarchy right there, Jensen. You're promoting the patriarchy, sir.
No, no,
I'll
no.
take
Well, I'll take
I'll
the
take the
blame.
blame for that.
really
No,
wanna-
I'm taking the blame.
Now, I really want to touch seriously on the point that Jensen just brought up. What you're looking at there, you can thank the suffragettes for. The Scum Manifesto and marriage as slavery ideas come from the suffragette movement with their lovely white feathers. Like, that comes from them. So if anyone ever wants to discuss how women's liberation helped society, you can point back to where everything started going to shit with the suffragettes. I mean, the ideas that were proposed by second-wave feminism in the 60s and 70s were adopted by the original suffragettes in the 1910s. The radicals of today are only expanding upon the Scum Manifesto, which is over 100 fucking years old.
Yeah, that's the thing, because it dates back to the people who wanted the prohibition. It goes way back to the prohibition days.
I'm talking international.
They were the Puritans. They were the Puritans. Yeah, I'm talking but that's what I'm talking. No, it's suffragettes in Britain before they were ever in the US. I'm talking about in the US, the suffragettes during the time of prohibition. That's when they wanted to start dictating terms, and they started getting political influence. Way before they started, doing anything to do with, women's actual rights. They just wanted to fuck up people's, enjoyment. I mean, that's the original SJWs, right? We want to stop, boys being able to go out after a hard day's work and have a drink. Now you can't have any pleasure.
Okay, actually, if we're gonna touch on this, I would like to bring this up because I do so enjoy bringing this up. So now, don't get me wrong. I have nothing wrong with females holding land or being able to vote. But here's the thing: if you want to go down the lines of you want to be a responsible adult, okay, that's fine. You want the right to vote. You want to be able to hold land. That's great. Congratulations. Welcome to equality. You have the right to vote. You take accountability for your own actions. But here's my question.
No, don't forget, right to vote.
If you're a single parent, with a child, mother or father, I don't care what it is, you're working a 9-to-5 job, trying to pay the bills. Your kid goes to school. Why do you think after school programs? Why do you think daycare is a thing? Look at the education system as it is nowadays, 30 years later. Why do you think it's not even education anymore? It's indoctrination. Why do you think that most single parents are generally depressed or either have to work every living, waking hour? And oh, by the way, the ones that don't have children, they're the ones that make money, but they aren't replacing the population. Therefore, now you have an increased demand for immigration. Do you start to see where these dominoes fall? You start to see the collapse of society.
But
where does it begin?
It
begins with the nuclear family.
Real quick, Doku, real quick. This is something that drives me absolutely insane. Women were allowed to own property and vote. Voting rights were tied into property ownership. You had to own a certain amount of land to vote. So women were allowed to own property and women could vote. And as far as women not being able to work, the League of Blacksmiths in the United Kingdom's recorded history of the trade unions from the monarchy's fucking record keeping go back to the 10th century, and in the 10th century they have female master smiths. That's over 1,000 years ago, and that's in written history. We can prove that off of the fact that European countries are by far about 1,000 fucking years old. So you can look at their actual recorded histories within their own actual fucking records.
That's why feminism doesn't really work over here, because they know it's bullshit. Because Ada Lovelace, the first programmer. We got plenty of scientists and people who've already demonstrated that they've been recognized and well respected. Mary Shelley, writers, people like that. I mean, hell, we got a queen. We've had 2 prime ministers now that are female. We've got a queen. How many queens have we had in the past? And, Queen Elizabeth I is the most highly respected, royal that you can think of, started the whole British Empire.
Much better.
Queen Victoria, very well respected. You know, nobody gives a shit about whether or not she had, you know, what her genitals were. Just damn good job, well done. You know, nobody gave a shit about any of this stuff. The Americans created all this stuff in the 60s. It was a 60s invention by the Americans, and it's all gone totally tits up.
Saul Alinsky specifically, but that's just an extension of Karl Marx.
Well,
Yeah.
that's not quite true. Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals, is not nearly as destructive as his protege's book, Roots for Radical. That,
Yeah,
like,
but he made an avenue because he got into every fucking
really,
university,
Saul
and
Alinsky
so
was
people
trying
started
to
looking into this
talk
shit.
about it at all. It comes from French communist views from Trotsky. I mean, that's like,
Well, yeah, I suppose.
the Trotsky school
René Descartes.
somehow not tied into communist insanity, and it's perfectly allowed. It's fucking insane. Like, ideological subversion is a Trotskyist idea that the KGB adopted because it was already being implemented in the West under his teachings from his disciples there. I mean,
Yeah, but Saul Alinsky is the book going into the universities and the colleges is, you know, provided a sort of major springboard into the 60s, you know, which is what these people were all quoting, you know. I mean, everything is,
sure.
well,
I mean,
everything's evil.
Manifesto's a little bit old, and nobody needs to seize the means of production because we're not manufacturing bases anymore. You know, the entire West is stopped universally doing low-end manufacturing. We only do high-end manufacturing now. So it's not it's not like you can get lines and lines and lines of low-end steel workers to rise up. Like that's not a viable paradigm anymore. So they needed to.
No, the unions. Well, the only unions you got left now are the teachers' unions, and I mean, do you have a steel union anymore?
Yes, no. We still have steel and pipe fitter unions; those are still a thing. But you're talking about a significantly smaller portion of the population.
What about the Teamsters? No more Teamsters,
the
right?
Teamsters is actually, I think, one of the most powerful unions in America because overland travel of freight is significantly done by semi trucks because there's too many places that are not accessible by rail. I mean, we're just too fucking big to have trains going to every fucking location. I mean, like shit, we're still using the transatlantic Pacific Railway system. Like they haven't significantly updated it in over 200 fucking years. I mean,
we're still working on.
We don't need any infrastructure upgrades.
No, seriously, we're still using on our, you know, on the spur stations and things. That's still Victorian. I'm not kidding. Literally Victorian stuff. I mean, from the days of, you know, Robert Louis Stevenson. But then again, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hangouts decided I wasn't worthy, apparently.
You are not worthy. You are banned.
Okay, so I have a quick question.
Cool.
I'll say there's a dichotomy here when it comes to the well-being of a society. Number one is when children are no longer raised by the parents and raised by the state, and when the parents work for the state and no longer raise the children, that's when the degradation of society truly begins.
I would agree.
When that becomes an acceptable social model.
No, I would absolutely agree because the bond between a parent and a child is honestly your first experience of God as a kid. And if you don't have it, then what is your faith in anything greater than surviving till tomorrow?
Yeah, but the parents should take on that.
But I mean, seriously, to quote the Crow.
But the parents should take on the responsibility and not allow the state to impose itself. You know, by choosing their, you know, lifestyle, making their lifestyle a way that makes that child's development, you know, viable in a real sense, not in a sort of, you know.
Here's a statistic that not a lot of people want to deal with, but if you look at two couple parents, right? Does not matter if you're talking heterosexual or homosexual parents. Two parents significantly reduce the likelihood of your child being a delinquent, being physically abused, and or sexually assaulted. Period. It doesn't matter. It's the two-parent dynamic. So that way there's always a child life.
Now, sorry, those statistics, the male-female...
Traditional nuclear family, optimally.
Male female is optimal.
What?
Male female parents are optimal.
That's what I just fucking said, Gabby.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That you can have gay parents, and it may be better than not having, you know, and then than being a single parent. But everyone knows that a single parent is useless generally.
This is where the point where Cabbage dissects something that was already said to start a 20-minute disagreement.
No.
Good
No,
description.
I'm just saying that it boils down to whether or not you are a single parent. I mean, if you're always going to be better off if you have two parents. There is an optimal parent relationship, but then there's, you know, the one parent dependent on the state is where most of the problems come from. They are. I mean, it's undeniable. I mean, the statistics in every respect prove that point.
Well, and also
Single
the other aspect to that is if you are a single parent, which the dichotomy I just stated, the state is essentially raising your child and you're working for the state, you're going to be far more willing to work for the state and let the state raise your child because ultimately you have to provide to that child. And if you don't, well, that child gets taken away from you.
Yeah, dependency breeds dependency.
Well, see, that's the difference because under the current single parent paradigm, you actually generate income the more kids you have. So realistically, you are incentivized under the current state aid system to have a bunch of kids and not really care about them because that's your paycheck, realistically. And that's
and now you're producing
fucking problem.
And now you're producing more children for the state, which also raises the bills for everything else. And essentially, it's a way for the state to both expand and consolidate power over a long period of time. If you look at the look at the long-standing trend,
we're looking at 6 full generations because you count a generation at about a decade. So you're looking at about 6 full generations of that paradigm, W. And what you're seeing is the dramatic shift and breakdown of just the core fabric of society. And it's largely due to that. I mean, yes, in the short term, it gives you a massive amount of political capital to leverage. In the long term, it's stupid expensive and ultimately destructive to your society. It's the same thing.
I think that's a lot of what we're seeing today.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing as unfettered immigration, where you're not allowed to have a border. If you're not allowed to have a border, why should you care or protect your country? Because it's not actually your country, it's a country of the world. So why fucking care?
Well, isn't it more of like a duality in a way of it? Basically, if you have like a strong knit family, it's like, yeah, no, that's your direct kin. It's like that's your like personal like family investment to have a close-knit group. But in order to have a functioning society, you also want to have everybody have some level of commonality. And like back in the day, and like I still hope nowadays, it's like as Americans we used to hold that in as our identity as well, but that seems to kind of be going by the wayside for some.
Well, what happens when you displace that identity? Just to use a very very basic example, what happens if we continue to have the same sort of borders that we did under Bush and Obama, and a lot of the money that is created in this country made by illegal immigrants gets sent out to their families in other countries? It's not reinvested into the economy. It's just making things more expensive for everything else here. It doesn't do anything good for us. It makes people more desperate. They work longer hours. What good comes of it? What's the positive? But what's the positive? What's the net positive of having open borders or mass immigration, especially when people can only afford to have one child?
Well, in ancient times, okay, and I do mean this, like pre-industrial revolution, 500 plus years ago, ancient times. The advantage of having a large immigrant pool was an endless amount of basically either slave labor or slave warriors. So you could, this is what the Romans did that made them successful for 1,000 years, was you could become a Roman citizen if you fought in the army for a grand total of 20 years and you get a plat to live, and at least if you died, your children would still count as Roman citizens. Now, what that means in modern times, we're not having wars where we're killing off 200,000 people in one battle on an open field. We're not doing that anymore. So because that's no longer the paradigm, it doesn't do us any good to bring in constant bodies because we're not actually going through them. I mean, we're not having Gallic hordes that we can turn into mercenaries to use for our latest battle against the Canadians, for example. Like that's not a thing.
And by the way, the VA was not a thing with the Romans. They didn't have a VA.
Well, also, we're not rapidly expanding land that needs to be farmed tediously 12 to 16 hours a day.
Well, that's where the slave labor aspect comes in. I was
Exactly.
talking more about the military because the military goes, at least ancient militaries went through more bodies faster than your slave labor did. That's the whole reason why they would have slave agro corps that they would throw into the military because they're getting too old to farm, so they might as well just go be arrow fodder.
That's also the aspect that the book Starship Troopers was predominantly based on is, you're guaranteed citizenship for fighting in war. With non-Roman citizens who fought in the legions were still guaranteed citizenship if they didn't die and came back. And by the way, once you get citizenship, you get paid 1 silver denarius afterwards, and that's enough to live for a week for most people.
Yeah, it's more Greek.
If you did real good, well, it started with the Greeks, but it was really pushed when the Romans started their expansion. They pretty much predicated their military on it.
Made into a bigger, badder thing. Like that was the whole thing about Roman culture that worked very well for them for a very long time, was the fact that you were still Roman, but we are an adaptive people that will take what is useful from this culture, which is why, like, the big problem that the Romans had with the Jews, for example, was the Jews would not accept Yahweh as part of their pantheon, so therefore they would not integrate. That was their major problem with it.
Always the Jews, the fucking Jews.
Rebellions.
Why won't they get the message?
Wait, what do we do?
No,
the Jews.
The Jews during.
It's always the Jews.
Well, no, I'm bringing that up as an example because there's very few peoples that actually withstood the Roman integration. The Jews did, and that's part of what made it such a big problem for the Judaic people in Roman cultures, because they insisted that their god pantheon, because at that time they were a polytheistic religion. Like, a lot of people don't understand that.
At which point?
Old school Jewish gods, but that's where a lot of that came from, was the fact that since they wouldn't accept into the Roman pantheon, then the only thing that we can do with these fucks is keep them from rebelling this century. Let's spread.
Hey, you go your way, I'll go Yahweh.
I was waiting for that. The moment Yahweh was mentioned, I knew that Memes was going to say it. It was literally just a matter of time.
Say it.
So just to loop us back around to almost some of that violent stuff. Here are some sobering statistics that I found on the internet. So if we want to consider that about 1% of the world's population are psychopaths and about 4% of the world's population are sociopaths, that means about 5% of the world basically falls into these classifications. And if that's true, out of a nation of 350 million people, we're talking about 17.5 million folks that are like this.
Yeah, you're
just something that we need to consider, that these are folks.
No, and this is the problem when you play statistics, loose and free like that, and you just use arbitrary.
Well, 80% of statistics are BS.
Right, exactly. So it's a nonsense number. It's just, let's just arbitrarily, because you're not doing comparative studies as to which kind of countries are much more likely to be, predominant on anything. So you just go with, let's just average everything out, and it'll all be good because we can just use an arbitrary number.
No.
I fucking hate that kind of statistical abuse.
That's a human universal for the most part. Those are maladapted. Yeah. No, those are maladapted genetic traits. There are certain advantages to being a psychopath.
Yes, that's why the Spartans used to leave them on the hill. The Spartans used to leave them on the hill.
That's not psychopathic. I'm talking about, like, look at Genghis Khan. a noted psychopath. Look at how well he was at spreading his Y chromosome. 1 in 4 in Asia have his Y chromosome. The guy did a fantastic job. From an evolutionary standpoint, there is success in these maladaptive genetic traits. Doesn't mean it's something good that you should glorify, though.
I'm not glorifying anything. I don't understand why anyone's glorifying. I mean, I still can't understand how we got to Roman fucking history. I mean, I understand the sort of like elements of it, but you know, we're going from furries, and the next thing we end up talking about, you know,
you brought up hedonism and degeneracy.
Very interesting.
That brought up Rome, actually, Cabby.
That's actually exactly how it came across, mate. Weirdly enough, the conversation has actually been a perfectly valid string to lead us to here. It's just, you know, anyone else watching this is probably sitting there going, what the bloody hell are they talking about? But I would point out this is like the last 5 minutes. So is there any valid points anyone would like to bring out? We have 5 minutes to do it in. Nope.
I'll let Cappy go first.
Okay.
No, not really. Like I said, it's just been interesting.
Yeah.
It's been odd. It's been interesting. It's been odd. You know, it's been emotional.
Well, again, thank you for being here, Cabby. Doku, anything you'd like to bring up?
The only thing I will say is that if you go back and look through history and check out the book The Great Super Cycle, not the one that's involved about economics, but there's another one that talks about societal changes throughout history, and it goes all the way back to Carthage, I believe.
Ooh.
But this is nothing new on human society. The only thing that's changed is technology. That's all it is. So we're seeing the end of the cycle where individuality has been given absolute precedence over one's own personal well-being, survival, dependence on the government, greater society as a whole, and it's starting to tighten back up. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing right now. So I'll be very curious to see how the next couple of years play out. Should be quite the show, but that's about all I got to say.
Okay. Thank you very much. Memes, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, is it ironic that I've been Tindering while we've been having these final words? No, I'm swiping right there. You don't know what I was seeing.
Oh, I don't want to know what you were seeing. But
I think even you would have swiped right on that, Miestro.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to see what's there. That's
wow, that was very misogynistic. My apologies.
Someone cue the Gummy Bear song.
Lovely young lady.
Oh, you can't be misogynistic if they're submitting themselves for appraisal.
Well, it's consent.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's there.
Maestro, do you have any last thing you'd like to say, sir?
Actually, yes, I would. There is a way for us to reel this back. The problem is that it requires people to actually take genuine inventory and stock of what they're doing in their own particular lives and deciding to go back to a more grounded base. Does that mean regression? Not really, but progress for the sake of progress is not a good thing. And I really think that part of the problem that we're experiencing as a culture is that we have put the ideal of progress above and beyond the health of our own society. And I think that until we address that and try to work as a cohesive collective again, as an actual country, or else why collectivism? I mean, if we can't work together, then there's no reason for you to be American versus being just citizen of the world. That's pretty much where I'd like to leave that on.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
The world. Okay.
In that case, my final points on this was a damn interesting conversation, since we started off with abortion, and we've ended up with Roman history. Highly impressive, highly chaotic, and to be honest, quite enjoyable. Now, I'd like to thank all of you for being here, and for anybody that actually did watch this, thank you very much for doing so. Hope you all have a nice time, and hopefully things will be back to normal tomorrow with Mad actually being in charge. Thank you very much, everybody, and good night.